By the title, this is a channel update, and I've got some interesting other stuff coming. So there hasn't been a lot of videos lately. I've got a lot of hobbies, and crunching through them has taken a while. So I've actually had a bike I had to finish building on a very short time frame. That's taken up all my spare time. That does mean, however, that I do have the BMRX project still outstanding, which is probably one session away from being completed. Minus electronics, of course. I'm still on the fence about whether or not I do the electronics for that, but I also want to do some 3D printed parts for the cable routing, and that's going to be interesting. So I need to get the 3D printer up and running as well, but that'll only take me a couple of minutes. So you can expect a BMRX video next week, and possibly even some outdoor 1/10 scale footage, probably next Friday. The reason for that is I finally got the parts. I've been waiting for a servo for 4 months now from RC Mart, and when I got it, the servo was the wrong size, so I had to go swap that out with the servo I put in my modified WL toys. Like, basically everything I've got is heavily modified and converted to brushless, so it shouldn't surprise you that I had a custom servo and that sort of thing. But this is a Kyosho Phantom. Now, it probably looks a bit more familiar if you've got the case on top of it. As you can see, I've started masking it out. Not a very good job, but kind of getting there and playing around with it. That just fits on there like that. But let's get back to the good stuff. So, servo came, the Tekin motor came. Not my best wiring job. Luckily in this case it is fairly easy to clean up. Basically, if I tidy this bit up and do some hiding the cables, it'll look a lot better. I'm actually really annoyed I didn't take the opportunity to put black braiding on top of this. So back to the bike build for a moment. One of the hardest parts of that was running the brake lines and the shifter lines throughout the cable. It's a very heavily modified Brompton. And one of the things I did is I sheathed every single brake line in cable. In fact, it's just this stuff here. So as you can see like that, it's semi-transparent when you push it through. And no, actually I don't have an example, but I do have the brake line here. So you force it through, and then you get this really nice, it's a bit hard to see on camera, but you get this really nice subtle red effect. And in the sunlight, it looks absolutely magnificent. Depending on how you look at the cable, it changes between reddish and black. So did a lot of that, but would have used the same braiding on here just to tidy everything up. That said, it is actually relatively clean. I managed to route it there. And I originally was going to have that in there, which is normally generally reserved for the motor, so for the receiver. And this, I actually did measure, this would fit, but then I'd lose access to the setting buttons, and I decided I wanted to be able to see the LEDs. And when I took it downstairs for some testing yesterday, that was really handy to see full throttle. When you go full throttle, this all lights up and makes testing it very simple. So running a 3S LiPo, which is way too much to be honest. This thing is stupid quick at the moment. There's no suspension on this car, which is rather interesting. Not even springs or anything here. There's literally no suspension. So you should be running this on a perfectly flat track. And I just took this down to the garage where there's a lot of polished concrete. And the nice thing about that is this is normally a carpet racer. So on polished concrete, the back just slips out. But it was very well controlled, and it was kind of interesting to have a different drifting experience to the Mini Zs. This is a very simple chassis, and in fact, if you're looking to get into pan car racing, it's a very cheap way to get into the RC car hobby. The chassis are dirt cheap. You only have to add servo, ESC, and motor, and then if you've got a big enough mount here, you can actually probably go with the Hobby King Quick Run Fusion. And then drop the ESC altogether, which would be a very interesting build. So I got the heatsink on there. But as I said, going back to pan cars, if you are looking at pan cars, I definitely recommend, I'm just trying to find another chassis, SD Racing. They're on Facebook, and I'll include a link below, and I'll show you what I got from them a while back. As I quickly run around the room, this is what I like about this mic. I can be about 3 meters away and it still picks me up. So he makes a pan car like this, but he also makes a trike. So the trike is just brushed. It's one of the few brush motors I've got here, and I just chucked a random servo I had laying around, which is kind of funny because that's not a cheap servo by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a good one. And this was dirt cheap as well. He's got a lot of chassis and a lot of electronics that, as a starting point, would be a brilliant way to enter into this hobby, and a very, very cheap way to enter the hobby as well. It's very easy to go onto the model stores like RC Mart and end up spending a whole lot of cash. I did not realise how dirty I got those tyres. So, as you can see, it's black. It's all just, that was white when I bought it. So that's just the amount of dirt and brake dust and foam and whatnot. It's pretty dirty downstairs, so that's that. I need to do some more running with this. The design's pretty similar, direct drive. It looks very much like an MR03. The MR03 has more suspensions than this, of course, but this was a lot of fun. I got it because it was a Kyosho thing, and I like the Kyosho stuff a lot, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. So it was a nice way to, nice little side project. I wasn't planning to finish it this week, and then found some time in my schedule and decided to wire everything up and went ahead and did it, because it's good I did it. The reason why it's good that I did it is I have a, what do I have on board? Tamiya car that's been set up as a rally car, an XV-01 with a front one way and a whole bunch of other mods, and that was why this one was so appealing, because it's got a limited slip diff in it, which is just via pressure plates, and you tune by tweaking that little nut there. But it's also got one way in the front, and after reading some guides about using front one ways in the front in rally cars, it was interesting to take this out and just see how sharp the turns could be, and this performs like crazy. So I can only imagine how well the rally car is going to perform with all that set up. Now let's get on to the main event. There's a lot of catching up to do because I haven't put videos up in the last 2 weeks. This is probably the most fun one. Well, actually second most. I'll show you why in a moment. So I got one of the Rubicon Jeeps. I also got the Toyota body that I always wanted, but I'm planning to leave this one fairly stock apart from wheel weights. I've already put some grease in the shocks. The back's probably a bit too bouncy for my liking. I'm not sure why the front is so not nearly as responsive. But it doesn't bounce nearly as much as out of the box. And I mean, it was just a cheap atomic grease. I just bought a pack of them, and I use them all the time. So happy I got this. This is going to just be my outdoor crawling vehicle. But for indoors, I've actually got something more impressive here. Now, there's been a couple of people who have done these brushless mods, but I decided to try my hand at it, and I did it differently for a couple of reasons. So this is my Suzuki Jimny, and where it's at the moment. So we've got the roof rack on here. We've got the LED buckets, which I haven't filled in because I'm still working on the LED light kit. In fact, if I grab this, I had a prototype board that I'm playing with. A nice little board like that, just a 50 megahertz processor, USB. The reason I'm liking this board and I'm thinking about using it is because it's very, very easy to give to people and have them update it. You plug it in via USB and it shows up as an SD card, you drop the firmware on it and you're done. And you can change your settings and everything just from your computer, which is very, very nice. So it means I don't have to support individual models. I just give you the one piece of hardware and just give you different software. So it looks like it doesn't have enough pins for all the LEDs, but I've got a trick there, and that is tricolor LEDs, which are somewhere around here. These things. So these can actually be daisy chained, and these are full RGB LEDs. So they're a tad bit pricey. We're talking like 5 cents as opposed to, or I think they're 20 cents a pop compared to like a 1 cent LED. But the nice thing is they're almost the same size as the front lights on here. So I can use these behind most of the light buckets, and then I've got smaller ones for little detail work like the indicator, the fog lights down there. I plan to do the indicator on the side, as well as a little thing at the back. In fact, I need to just fix that up. That's just blue tacked on. And then we've got the snorkel, and you can see the one thing I did today was actually swap out the Toyota front bar just to get some more clearance at the front, because it's very easy to hit things. And even with this on, I went to go tackle some big obstacles and was still hitting it. So, I mean, if you're rather... No, you can't see it. I was going to say, if you're rather astute, you may see that that's an actual normal servo, but you couldn't at the angle I was showing it at. So let's dive into that for a moment, because this is going to be interesting. I do want to apologize for my electronics job in advance. I can do good electronics jobs, and people have seen them and they have been phenomenal. That's something that takes a lot of work, and when you're just rapidly prototyping something, it's not something I normally bother with. So you see here I've modified the servo bracket here to take a normal servo. Turns out that's a lot easier than I thought it'd be. You just pop off both ends, do some filing, force the servo in, and then you get the bottom bracket piece and you slap that on, and then the tabs of the servo here and on the other side keep it all in place. So that's been working pretty well. I just need to recenter it, which is good. I've also got the wheel weights in here. So if I drop, you can see there's no bounce, and in fact it's making the table wobble, it's that heavy. So I did have to upgrade the slipper clutch, and that's what I spent the last 2 hours doing. I was actually slipping under power, and the reason for that I'll get into in a moment, but I just put a 0.05 mil shim in place, just from my shim kit, which is turning out to be super useful for fixing problems. And that's working super well. So I just want to show one thing with how the car is set up at the moment. So if I load the suspension up, wheels, everything rotates pretty smoothly. There's still a bit of friction in there that I need to work out how to eliminate, but generally everything's going pretty well. If you are looking closely, you would have noticed the interesting part. So I'm running just the standard LiPo cells I use with my Mini Zs, and I'm using a rubber band to hold it down. And luckily with this case, if you do it vertically, it all actually fits. If you have it horizontally, because I'm not running the case on the outside here, it actually bumps. There's a chance it'll bump or rub on the gears, but this is only a temporary solution because I'm going to redo all the electronics at some point. So I've actually used the battery bay here to first use my own strap rather than that clip-on thing, which I always struggle with, but also I've just got a temporary receiver unit in here, my usual Fly Sky stuff. This is the one I'll be using on the rally truck, but it's just sitting around spare at the moment. Now here's probably what most people call a questionable decision. I'm running an Ensotec ESC and an Ensotec motor. They are pretty expensive choices. It wouldn't possibly be most people's first choice. The reason I'm doing it is because I had them on spare, but more specifically, I've got a hold of the Atomic ESCs. The problem that most people might know about with brushless ESCs is as they don't perform nearly as well at low speeds. There's a certain minimum speed at which point it's fine, but basically there's no low RPMs. It starts very quickly. Brush motors, you get a lot more of that low end control, which is why you typically see them in crawlers. But I did find the brush motor in this had a lot of resistance on the drivetrain. I think it might have just been due to a problem here where the motor was sitting a bit too tight, but it was a good opportunity to do the brushless because, as I say, I like to do brushless on everything. It has made it rolling down the hill a lot smoother, which is kind of cool. But I went with so a lot of people know that brushless ESCs with a sensor cable operate better at lower speeds, and that's why I went with it. I had a brushless setup and I decided to go use it. I actually in this thing itself, I actually compared the Atomic ESC versus the Ensotec, and the Ensotec was significant. Like, it started moving at a much slower speed way before the Atomic unit did. It's still not as low as I'd like, and it's actually still tempting to go back to the brushed unit, but I don't have too many brushed ESCs. I do have some brushed ESCs, and I did try the brushed ESCs on here. I don't have a good quality brushed ESC. And it turns out that there's quite a bit of variance with the ESCs, and you actually do want something that's good because the low speed modulation sucks on a lot of the cheaper ones that I ordered. But that's fine, I actually ordered them for racing, not for crawling. I do have the Taken one that I could use, but that's reserved for the rally truck. Anyway, back to how I did the mod. It turns out that, surprise, surprise, the Ensotec motors are the same, they fit within the dimensions that the can does, which shouldn't come as a surprise for anyone, given that you can swap them out pretty easily. The gear mesh was adjusted the same way. I'm using this plastic bit as a spacer, which is pretty typical. The only real smart thing here I did is I've got 2 screws here, and that's actually not to secure the motor, because there's clamping forces like that from holding the original motor. It's actually to prevent the motor from rotating in place. So they don't even have to be very, very tight. And in fact, I over-tightened them, and the motor wouldn't spin, which is a known issue with the Ensotec motors if you go read the FAQ on their website. If you use a screw that's too long, it will actually prevent the motor from turning. Because there's no stoppage on the hole that they've drilled out. They use all the space available. So if you have an Ensotec motor and it's not rotating, try backing out the screws. And if it makes the motor wiggle a bit, then you may need to shim it up to get it work. But that's basically it. I guess really the best way to show that this works, and I really should show you that it does work, that I'm not totally lying to you, is to actually fire it up, which is relatively quick. Now I'm not going to be too careful with the electronics. I'm not going to put the body in, we're just going to run it as a bare chassis. To anyone dropping into this channel and watching me ramble, domo. Probably no one will get that, but that's fine. That's for me only. So we do that, push that up, push the button. Let's go this way around. Can't remember if it's push or hold. Yeah, I gotta hold it for half a second. Now we do the magic.
Welcome to Noble.
Red light. Now I've got a calibration issue and I haven't quite tracked that down. It seems to jitter like this. It's like on a hair's breadth, and I'm pretty sure it's a ESC issue. But wow, it's actually pretty bad today, which is kind of crazy. So it's actually funny if you have a look at it, and this is probably an interesting thing. You can actually see the motors jittering back and forth. So you know what, that actually might even be an ESC cable now that I think about it. I do really need to plug this into Bluetooth and see if it's actually got the sensor cable is actually kicking in, because there's a good possibility that it's not using that. Or that maybe I've got the screws in a bit too much, so. So it's funny because I did this video and I tested it out and it was rock solid. I did some tweaking and it was all good. Oh, actually I know what it is. Nope. I've actually had this happen with Ensotec stuff a couple of times where it just seems to lose where the motor's at and then jitters to try and work out where it is. But not quite sure what's happening there, so. And then this would typically go like something like that, and you'd have crawling like that. So that's that. I'm going to stop that before I embarrass myself further. As I said, just a quick channel update. Expect another video on the BMXR next week. And I'm actually contemplating doing some of the 1/10 scale stuff and videoing that. So if you're into that, let me know. And that doesn't necessarily just have to be build videos, of which I'll be doing a lot of building. As I said, I've got the rally car coming up, and the other one I've got coming up is a gmade GOM, so GOM. That's an off-road rock basher type thing that It's not like a crawler where you just climb up and everything. It's designed to be really, really aggressive and go full throttle uphill. So you actually literally bounce a vehicle up. So we'll see about that. And there might be some other stuff in the wings if I can't stop myself. So look forward to that. Let me know if you want to see 1/10 stuff, whether or not you want to see the builds, or if you just want to see some footage out and about. I do plan to get some footage of the Phantom running around because that thing is absolutely crazy and that'll go up regardless. But if you're into rally racing, and this is where I want to head towards, and part of the reason why I'm doing the RC Dakar truck, because I want a 1/24th scale rally racer and then also want a 1/10th scale. Let me know, and you will probably see me getting fit as I run behind an RC car and rapidly fall behind. So thanks for joining me. I'm going to stop blathering, and I will see you all in the future. Keep on building. Good night.